I'm going to tell you the story of Rumpelstiltskin and how it relates to your life. So the story of Rumpelstiltskin is a miller brags about his daughter's ability to turn straw into gold. Now, she doesn't actually have this ability. He's just trying to make himself look good. He's trying to make himself superior to those around him. When the king hears of this, he's like, oh, your daughter can turn straw into gold? Well, send her over to my kingdom. He orders for her to come to his kingdom. He locks her up in a little room and gives her some straw in that room. And he says, spin this straw into gold or I'll kill you or I'll execute you. I'll have you executed. And so she's stuck in this room and she's crying and she's like, oh no, I don't know what to do. How am I going to spin the straw into gold? I do not actually know how to do this. I'm going to die. And then this imp appears, or like he's kind of like a leprechaun or whatever you want to call him. But Rumpelstiltskin appears and he's like, hey, I see you have a dilemma on your hands. I can help you out. I can help you turn this straw into gold. I can actually do that. But you've got to give me something. And she agrees and they start spinning. He spins the straw into gold. The king sees this. He's like, wow, amazing. This happens over a couple of times where she's got to spin more straw into gold, and otherwise she'll die. But also the reward is greater as well. The king says, hey, look, if you can do this whole room, I'll marry you, right? And Rumpelstiltskin, what he gets out of it is he asked for the firstborn child of this girl. Now to her, that's a great deal because she's like, I'm either going to die or I give this guy my firstborn child and marry the king. And so she chooses that. So here's the issue with that, right? Here's how it relates to us in this real life, right? She is looking at, an opportunity. We are all looking at an opportunity where we could be greater than or better than the things that are happening around us, right? Superior to those around us. And the system wants us to have to feel like we need to brag about that or we need to be better than our current circumstances are. And so we strive for that. And then it puts us in this position where it's like, now you've got to choose, right? And so here's a real life example. Real life example would be, I've talked to parents who have their kids in schools where the school is not doing things that they would prefer for their children. The school is doing things that they outright disagree with, but they're like, but my kid is getting an education, or I don't have to watch him all day because I've got to go to work. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do. I would love to take my kid out of school, but I don't know what to do in this situation. I've also talked to parents who they've had the experience themselves where, let's say, for instance, Netflix was in a scandal not too long ago where they were promoting this show or movie. Basically, it was a show that was putting children in positions that are adult situations that most people would not prefer, right? And so they disagreed with the practices of what Netflix was doing. I forget the name of the show, but it was a bunch of kids who were cheerleaders, young girls who were cheerleaders, and then they were made to do some positions that were very adult in nature. They were sexualized, essentially. And so a lot of people disagree with that in practice. However, Netflix also has a ton of shows that are very entertaining for a lot of people. And the position that they felt they were in was, well, I'd have to give up all that entertainment to stand by this principle or what I believe is right? And this is how the system gets you, right? The system gets you by putting you in a position where it's like you're bought, essentially. This is how the system buys your child from you. It's just like Rumpelstiltskin, right? They're buying your child from you by going, look, we'll give them an education. right? We'll take care of them for 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on what school they're going to, right? They're going to be socialized. You're going to get that feeling of pride because you're going to be able to have your kid around other kids that are very similar, that they share the same values. These are all things that this system offers for your child. And it feels like for a lot of parents that they're put into a predicament where it's like, yeah, but the alternative is impossible. The alternative is they don't go to school and they don't learn anything. And, yeah, sure, they learn some things that I don't really like or I don't prefer, but the alternative is they get no education. Or the alternative is I have to stay home and then I can't work if I stay home, and that's not possible. There's these alternatives seemingly in the minds of many people, and for a lot of people it does feel like a lot of pressure. They are in positions where it's not like they're going to turn on a dime and be able to change that situation. But the problem is that just because that is the current situation doesn't mean it has to remain that way. Doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way forever, right? And so what that means then is there is an actual alternative. In the story of Rumpelstiltskin, the actual alternative would have been for this miller to not be bragging about something that is not even possible, right? And in reality, the actual alternative is, why are you trying to fit in with the system? Why are you trying to be or one up somebody or be like, great, looked at as great within this system? I was just looking at the feed of one of my friends on Facebook, and he was asking the question, how much do you think the average lawyer in his state gets paid, right? And everybody's saying like 100K, 150K, 75K. And he's like, nope, lower. For a first year lawyer in his state, he said they're typically making around 50K. And when he started out, he was only making 35K for his first year. Now, average tends to be around 65K in his state, somewhere like that. But he was saying basically, most people don't make it to the higher amounts. Most people don't make it, especially not to 100K, because he says that's like an 8-year lawyer in his state, right? And so the point being is that we all have these ideas of how life is around us. We perceive it a certain way. We're expected like, oh, if I'm a lawyer, I'm supposed to be making good money. I'm supposed to drive this kind of car. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. If I had my kid in this school, then everybody's going to look at me like I'm great, or they're great, or they're going to have better opportunities. But the reality is we're going along with a system that is actually not best for us. This system is all about your perception, your image, all of that, how you look. And so it strings us along to get us to agree with, quite frankly, a lot of things that we do not agree with. We do not agree with them, and yet we still accept them and allow them into our lives because we're literally letting ourselves be bought off, and we're letting our children be bought off. Look at the things that we sit our children in front of as far as television or Netflix or YouTube or whatever. It's actually hurting your child, but it gives you the opportunity for, hey, there's some entertainment, and this child is entertained for the while, so I can go off and do other things. Or even it purports to educate your child, but the reality is that your child is actually worse off for it. That's the reality. And so there's so many things like this where we make these concessions in our lives. We make a concession here, and it seems like a really small concession. It's like, oh, okay, well, I just sat them in front of this television show or this YouTube thing for 15 minutes, big whoop, but then you do that every day. And then, oh, well, I just microwaved this food that's got, red dye 40 and high fructose corn syrup and all these other ingredients that are not best for the human body. But it's just one meal, but then you do it every single day. And then, oh, I just put them in school, and but it's every single day. And all these little things, this thing after another, after another, after another, after another, that compiles together to create essentially exactly what we don't want. It's creating literally the society that we don't want. This is how it's done. This is how it's done. It's through our children. It's through what's happening in our own lives. When our children grow up, they become people who they're willing to give these concessions to get a little bit of that good life, or at least what seems like a good life. I was talking with my wife just earlier today, and I was looking at a profile that I followed on Instagram, because it gives us a lot of, I guess, just keeps us up to date with what's going on in our area, right? And they do a really great job. And so sometimes we find out things through this profile. It's like a local news, so to speak. But also on that profile, they promote a lot of things that I disagree with. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to follow this. I don't like looking at this stuff. And so I was saying that to her, and she's like, yeah, but they give us a lot of good information as well. And I'm like, that is it. That's just where a normal person would make the concession of, yeah, okay, but I do like these things. I may not like this thing. And so they'll continue on just supporting that profile. But we have the opportunity in each of these moments to say, no, that is not acceptable. And I'm going to do the thing that's actually best. And so when it comes to your children, you can't just accept, all this stuff is great, and then I'll make this concession here and then continue doing that. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a child that is really just a bunch of concessions. It's not going to be the best child that they could be. I'm not even saying just for you, but just for them, right? If you had the opportunity, if you look back on your own life, you look back at how your parents raised you, you may think, well, in the past, looking back as an adult, if I would have had this in my childhood, things would have been so much different. And that may be very well true, right? But the reality is right now you're an adult, and your parents were the ones making those decisions for you for the most part. And so you have the opportunity now, if you have children or if you plan on having children, to do the same for them. You have the opportunity to actually give them the best things, the best starting point, the best opportunities, by giving them, number one, giving them the principles of doing what's best. And if you don't know what those are, definitely send me a message, but you can go on to self-perfected.com, and then you'll see the principles right there, right? And then the other thing is giving them the education to actually be able to understand these principles and live them and consider everything within their life, right? Those two things are so vitally important. Of course, within that, you want to be giving your child the environment in which they can actually develop and grow effectively, develop and grow into a place where they're not stunted by trauma that's happening around them. We want our kids to be able to be their very best. And so it may be too late, in a sense, for you. You're not going to be able to relive your past years, but you have the opportunity to give that as a gift to your own children. And that's really what changes this world. That's really what changes this world and sets all of us apart from the system itself. Because you can either be a part of the system or you can be promoting life, really. And so what sets us apart from the system is not just continuing to do the same things that the system did to us, but rather doing what's best, actually making a different decision, giving to our children the opportunity to have more, be more, do more than we were given, right? And that's what really sets us apart. There's a quote that I really like. It's like, you can make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to acknowledge that you made a mistake. But it's not okay to acknowledge that you made a mistake and then continue doing it and not change at all, right? And I understand it takes some time to change what you're doing, right? That's okay. But the point being, if you continue doing the same thing that was done to you, you're part of the problem. You're part of the system. But you have the opportunity to change that. You can make the decision of saying, no, I do not accept this. I do not allow this. And I'm going to change it for myself and for my children. And so you can make concessions, or you can have the best life. It is a challenge, at first especially, it is a challenge to consistently and constantly always make the best decisions. But that is the great opportunity that we have on this planet, in this life, is that we have the opportunity to choose. Yeah, okay, this way is a little more challenging, but it's the best thing. And who am I when I make decisions? Do I make decisions because they're easy, they're convenient, or because it's what feels good? Or do I make decisions because this is the best thing and I'm going to be the very best that I can be? If you want to be the very best that you can be, if you want your children to be the very best that they can be, and give them the opportunity, instead of being bogged down, because what most people struggle with or have a challenge with is that they're bogged down by the things that happen to them in their childhood, where it makes it harder to make decisions to be the best because they're still trying to feel good or even get back to just feeling okay, right? Instead of being able to make decisions based on, okay, I'm good, but I want to be the best and make decisions that are best, right? And so give your children the opportunity so that they don't have to fight just to feel okay or just to feel good about themselves and make concessions because they're trying to get that feeling back, but rather so that they can actually make decisions to be their very best. If that's you, send me a message. There's a link just below this video where you can send me a message and say, I want my kids to feel the best. And we can start that process right now. It's not very difficult. It's very simple, actually. And there's plenty of parents who are already doing it. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help or to support those who want to get their kids to actually being their very best, not based on how they're competing with other people, not based on I want them to look good for me, but actually from within that child, them reaching their full potential, being as happy as they could possibly be, doing as much as they could possibly do, being what they actually want to be, not based on just what society wants or just what their parents want, but what they can see, hey, this is actually the best thing. And that they'll be proud of, you as a parent could be proud of them, right? They'll actually appreciate you for doing so. If that's you, reach out, send me a message. I'm looking to connect with more parents like that because we want to create a community where parents like that don't have to feel like they're alone. They can get together with other parents who are doing this and we can really change the world. Thanks for joining me on this video. I'm looking forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.